Hi there, it's me, Stephen Thomas, with Reports on Housing with another housing debrief. Want to invite everybody to lightly tap that like button and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That way, we get as many people out there to see what's going on in the housing market based upon real facts, real data, real trends, and not some sort of narrative that this YouTube channel is trying to play out. Instead, we want to bring to you the latest and greatest the evolution of the housing market based upon everything that's going on in the economy. Speaking of that, housing is shifting again. And I really want to get into what we're seeing out there and what the trends are beginning to show. Now, we all know that interest rates have been on the rise, and you can see it's at 7.33% right now. And basically, from around April 1st on, there's been this trend of interest rates going higher and higher. And you could see that it's slowly but surely, of course, it goes up and down from day to day, but and there are different economic numbers that come out that make it go down. There's others that make it go up. But more recently, it's going up for a variety of, not just because of economic reasons, but because overall the United States economy has been pretty resilient, and so has the job market, to the point where people are beginning to think, and investors are beginning to think, that the Fed's going to have to stay at these higher rates for longer. And you can actually see we were just a couple weeks ago at the end of August. It was, I believe, on August 22nd. Interest rates actually almost reached 7.5%, 7.49% with no points across the United States. That was the average. The last time we were that high was December of 2000, which is when Gladiator was in movie theaters. That's how long ago it was. So what's that? About 23 years ago. And what's going on in the economy that's causing this shift is it all has to do with affordability. And affordability is not just mortgage rates. Mortgage rates is one piece of that puzzle, because mortgage rates have been higher in the past, and people are constantly telling me, "Hey, Stephen, well, I remember when interest rates were 10% or 15%, or I had an interest rate at 22%." Someone told me last week. I understand that, but house prices are a lot higher. Incomes are higher, but they have not kept up with how fast house prices have gone up in recent years, based upon how low mortgage rates were. So yes, we could have been at mortgage rates that were a lot higher prior to the Great Recession, and now they've come down quite a bit. But when you have those low interest rates for such a long period of time, that is what all the markets, housing, everything has adjusted to the lower rate environment. So it's really done it's like a 1-2 punch with affordability, because we've had house prices go up quite a bit. So as we've had interest rates rise, just from the very, very bottoms to where they are today, it's the incomes just absolutely cannot keep up with where affordability is currently at. And you can see this. This is from Black Knight across the United States where affordability is. Now, this is based upon where the median income across the United States and where interest rates are. But if you draw a line across, you can see that we are right now at one of the most unaffordable places that we've been in a very, very long time. That's that blue line. So affordability is absolutely an issue. And there are some areas of the country that don't really have this affordability problem, but there are areas that absolutely do. You can see the top 10 most affordable markets are mainly in the Midwest, and very, very few exceptions. Now, if you look at the least affordable markets, it's a lot of the markets that we at Reports on Housing track. Sacramento being one of those, San Francisco, San Jose, San Diego, Los Angeles, Riverside. You can see they're all in there. Of course, there's the other characters in there. Nashville's another one. Miami, Florida is another one. So, but by and large, mainly it is it's all the markets that we track that in California, where it's the lion's share of the issues with affordability problems. And part of those affordability problems are how high prices are in the state of California. And then you throw in these higher interest rates, it really brings affordability into play where things are so unaffordable that just everything is out of whack. And this is the reason we've had these interest rates float up. I've kind of alluded to it already, and that is because the Federal Reserve is expected to keep rates higher for longer. And this higher for longer, as the markets digest it, means that there's not a flood of investors moving to mortgage-backed securities and long-term debt like 10-year treasuries. Instead, they're playing all over the place, and we've seen that slowly but surely they think that that the 10-year treasury should be a little bit higher. Now, they do think that interest rates will come down as well as the Fed short-term rate next year, and right now it's not forecasted to happen until later on in the year. I mean, we're talking like May of 2024 is where a lot of people and a lot of investors are now marking the first time that the Fed will actually reduce rates. But and that's all up in the air because we have a lot of runway to go through prior to even getting there. So we have a lot of 2023 to get through, a lot of reports coming up. There's a lot of inflation reports. Next week, we get a couple of inflation reports. Everybody, of course, follows CPI, which is a week from yesterday. So we've really had no news for a while, and we're not going to get news until next week. And then all of a sudden, we're going to get news every single day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and the following Monday, Tuesday. A lot of economic news coming all in a row, but there's this dead period of time of no real solid economic news, and it leaves investors and everybody else kind of looking around and worrying about, is the Fed ever going to come down off of their rates? Is the economy ever going to cool? So as a result of these rates that have been going higher and higher and now are at a new level, because if you remember, we've had rates that were, like I said, they were a lot lower earlier in this year. They were below 6.5%, below 6.25%. They even reached 5.99% back in February. But ever since April, you can see how the rates slowly but surely have been getting higher and higher, and people have been getting accustomed to higher rates. But once they go above 7%, that is where we have a real issue. Once we go above 7%, what it does is there are already fewer buyers in the pool that are able to afford houses right now based upon where interest rates are. And you can see in what we were talking about over here, the national payment to income ratio is recently it has spiked up. And that spike means that fewer and fewer buyers are able to purchase. So the number of buyers out in the marketplace is beginning to dwindle a little bit more as interest rates stay above 7%. And that's kind of crucial. Above 7% and we're getting a change in the market. Below 7%, we've actually been able to tread water, and home values have actually increased. So let's get into what these higher interest rates have done to demand as well as to supply. But if we look at demand, and this is just for SoCal, we're gonna hone in on SoCal because this is the more expensive markets in California. And what we're seeing is on August 31st, last week, we were at 9,873. It went down 6% in just 4 weeks, demand did. And that kind of a dive down is not normal. Normally, when you get into summer, demand does go down, but at a much more even keel. It's just a slight decrease, but a 6% drop is more of noticeable, tangible difference when you're out in the marketplace. Last year at this time, we were at 12,498. That's that orange line. That's 27% higher than where we are right now in Southern California. And prior to COVID, I look at that average, 2017, 18, 19, and 3-year average, when the market was normal. And back then we had 15,696, and that was right where that purple line is. That was 2019. So that's where we should. Our demand reading is just a snapshot of the last 30 days worth of pending activity. And when you look at that, you can kind of see that when you're looking at pending activity, and we're looking at 30 days, not everything that's in the bucket of pending, because this will give us when things are changing really quick. And right now you can see where we are is far lower than that purple purple line. That blue line is far, far lower. And today it is at 9,802. So I showed you August 31st, which was last week. This week, 9,802, down another 1%. So demand is not going down quite as rapidly as it was before, but yet it is still going down. And that's what I'm accustomed to seeing, is where it goes down at a much slower pace. And it's like we digested these higher rates and it brought down demand even more. Now we're adjusted to this, but it will continue to slowly go down. Now, that is exactly what we anticipate. This blue line, you can see typically the demand peaks in the springtime between April and June. There are families that like to transact during the springtime. So do a lot of people. Their clocks work that way, that they'd rather make the move during the summertime. A lot of people work that way, but people transact year round. However, the peak of activity occurs during spring between April and the end of May. And you can see where we're at right now. We continue to drive down, and we're gonna drive down probably at the same pace that we're currently at right now, unless something changes on the mortgage rate front. And which brings us to inventory. There's been an absolute housing shortage, not enough inventory out there. But inventory still has increased a bit. And this is for all of Southern California. On August 31st, last week, we were at 21,007. That was down 1% in 2 weeks. So it looked like we may have hit a bottom on the 2 weeks prior. Last year, we were at 30,000, or not a bottom, I meant a peak for the year, because we typically peak, and we'll get into that in a minute, during the summertime. Last year, we were at 30,148. That was 44% higher than where we are. Prior to COVID, it was 40,887. That purple line is 2019. It was a little bit less than where the purple line is. I'm pointing to right where 40,887 is. And then today, it's at 21,143, which beats where it was prior to August 31st, mid-August, which means we haven't quite found that peak. Now, I snap these numbers every 2 weeks. We're going to snap the numbers next Thursday, and we'll see where things are, because we could have established that peak, but it's not like we're coming down very fast. So today we're at 21,143, up 1% from last week. And that brings us to where we think the inventory is going to go. Now, the inventory typically, once you peak, starts to come down at a pretty methodical rate. You could see it in the purple line. You can't really see it in the green line. That was COVID year, but you see it in the red, that it peaked and it slowly but surely started to go down. Just like I said, demand slowly but surely goes down. Now, what I'm pointing to is that orange line. That was last year, and that is when all of a sudden we came out of August, and August was a decent month for as far as demand was concerned, and it ate into the inventory, and we actually peaked out during the normal time of summer, even though interest rates had risen, but they had fallen down to 5% at the start of August. That's what fed that there was this little frenzy in demand at the end of summer around August. Now, this year, instead, during the month of August, we've had demand continue to go down, and we had the supply continue to go up. Looked like it may have peaked, but instead, we're looking at kind of like a flat peak. So it might have peaked, but like last year, we had interest rates that kept on going up, where they peaked in, interest rates peaked in October, November, and they got all the way from 5% at the beginning of August, like I said, to over 7% in October and November. And it kept the inventory from coming down because demand diminished even more, which is kind of where we are today, because this time around, we are sticking at above 7%, and we will stick at above 7% until something changes. And so most likely we're going to remain flat in inventory. So yeah, we may come off a little bit off our peak, but it won't be until we get to about the end of October, where we did last year, going towards November, where it started to come down during the holidays, which is absolutely normal. I would expect nothing different, that we would come down at least the last week in a couple weeks in October, and then really come down during the holidays. Now, the speed of the market is based upon what I talked about: the supply, available number of homes, and then demand. Demand is a snapshot of 30 days of pending activity. So you put that in together, it's nothing like days on market. People got to stop looking at days on market for closed sales data, which is always tiny compared to where the rest of the market really is. It's kind of an absorption rate. It's kind of the speed of the market. It's a real speedometer. Days on market will not tell you that. It won't tell you that in listings, because the listing days on market, median days on market, average days on market is going to be a lot higher than where solds are. Pendings will be somewhere in between. It's convoluted. It doesn't make a lot of sense, which is why we came up with expected market time. Expected market time is place your home on the market when are you opening up escrow based upon the current number of homes on the market and how fast demand is working, pending sales activity right now. So based upon that, on August 31st, we were at 64 days. That was last week. It was up 5 days in 4 weeks, which is a bit of a shift. Now, last year at this time, we were at 72 days. Pre-COVID, we were at 79 days. And you can see today, it's at 65 days. So it slowed down a little bit more from last week. And where I'm pointing to at that purple line is where we were during the springtime. And that is where it bottomed out. And we were at a really nice fast 45-day expected market time, which it went from 45 to 64 where it is today. That is a big shift in the market. It is takes 3 weeks longer to sell a home for all homes collectively. Now, intuitively, I do need to let everybody know that when I'm talking expected market time, I'm talking about the whole entire county, the whole entire area. Now, this is all of Southern California. We're not talking price ranges. Intuitively, in the lower prices, entry levels, it is a lot higher. But we have seen erosion in the lower levels, the entry levels. We have seen that the market has slowed. Now, in the luxury, it's slowed even more. So your expectation should be that things are really a lot faster in the lower ranges and a lot slower in the upper ranges. But overall, we're seeing this slowly but surely, these higher rates, that the market is slowly but surely cooling. And I could see it across the board in all the markets that we're working with. Now, as far as expected market time is concerned, I do want to explain something to everybody. Now, this is the way that normal supply and demand works. I actually had to pull these off of my reports because there is a definition for the different ranges. Below 40 is called insane. I actually developed that level during COVID because we don't ever spend any time below 40 days. 40 days is absolutely insane. That is when the market is so hot that we're getting multiple bids and people are doing some crazy things. When you have nothing on the market and you have so many people bidding on the same property that values just skyrocket because people are paying over asking price. So that is where, when you stick there, we were there for 2 years during right around COVID, all the way till a little bit into the second half of first half of 2022. It was like that, where it was just absolutely ridiculous. Now, typically, we're playing during the springtime between that right below the green line. So in about between 50 to 60 day expected market time, and that is what we refer to as a hot seller's market. That is where you do have values going up. What we were seeing in a lot of years is about 5% appreciation for the year, and most of it took place in the spring. It would then slow a little bit for the second half of the year. Between the green and the black is what we refer to as a slight seller's market. That is between 60 and 90 days. And between the two black lines, that's 90 and 120, it's actually what we refer to as equilibrium, a balanced market. It does not favor buyers or sellers. Now, that slight seller's market that I was referring to slightly favors sellers, but you're not going to get a lot of push on values going up. Between 90 and 120, values are kind of sideways. Above 120 to 150 is a slight buyer's market. That's where values are going down slightly. Buyers have a little bit more, they are calling more of the shots. And then above that red line is 150 days plus. And keep in mind, during the Great Recession, we reached 400 plus day expected market time. Way above 150, because we had a glut of homes available and we had low demand similar to what we have today. Today is different though because we have a similar amount of demand. However, we have nothing on the market. We have this catastrophically low inventory that has remained absolutely low. Across the United States, we used to have about 4 million homes on the market during the Great Recession versus today, we have barely over 1 million homes on the market for all of the United States. So there are a lot fewer homes that are available, and that's that scarcity that's causing, that is not allowing for values to plummet. And where are we going to go from here? Now, normally what we should have done is right around August, we should have remained flat and should have stayed right below 60 days. And 60 days is important because the way that the way that we're reading the market, it's a little bit broken. And when you get between 60 and 90 days, you actually have values that start to go down. And above 90 days is where you have values come down a little bit more in this present circumstance with the higher rates. And we'll get into that in a second. But this is where we should have been, but we didn't because we had rates that continued to rise all the way from April, and they continued to all the way through August. And instead, what we're going to get is we're going to get the expected market time to go up a little bit more until we get to about the second half of October, and then it will pivot and we'll actually see very similar to the orange line. It's not going to go up as far as the orange line, but we're going to see that once it gets to around middle of October, it will then start to come down. And so I do want to show what's going on in the marketplace. There are values already, and this is just through July, and this is Freddie Mac's house price index. They go back and they redo all their numbers and they look at it even more closely and they have more time, and then they go back and massage the numbers backwards. So these are the massage numbers for July. I know that they'll probably massage July a little bit more, but backwards we get a pretty good indicator as to how things are evolving. And you can see this right here, that this is the United States. The United States is up 3% year over year. It's up 0.5% per month. Now, you can see that the velocity of how much it's going up on a monthly basis, because this is the monthly gain every single month. And you can see it did go negative from July through December, and then started being positive from January on. But it's starting to decelerate in the month of July, and it should decelerate further in the month of August. This is for all of the United States. It's actually up 2% from the 2022 peak, which means that the United States as a whole is higher than where it was last year. So it's currently at an all-time high. Now, California is a bit different. It's up 1.2% year over year, but only up 0.1% month over month. I'm actually pointing to where we are in July of 2023, and you can see barely above. That's only 0.1%. That's hardly any kind of a gain. It's down 1.5% from the peak last year, so it's not down a lot, but all indicators are that it's probably going to go negative for the rest of the year, as long as interest rates remain where they currently are today, as far as values are concerned. Because now we're getting demand is not as fierce, and we're getting inventory that's not coming down. Some of it's stagnating, so it's going to require more price reductions and a little bit more working with the buyers that remain in the marketplace. And I'm going to show you a whole bunch of markets so you can see what's happened most recently. This is Riverside, San Bernardino. It was negative for the month of July already, and you could actually see it in the market times that were above 60 days already. So that's why we're seeing it in the month of July already. This is LA and Orange County. Orange County is hotter than LA, but it's combined with LA, so you're not going to really get a good feel for Orange County, but Orange County is slowing as well, but not as much as LA has slowed. And you could see that overall, it's barely positive. It's also that 0.1%. And then you could see that San Diego is a little bit more positive, but it has come down from the velocity of how much it's been going up. So it too is slowing down considerably. And most recent numbers point to, by the time we get to the end of the month and next month, that we are going to get some prices that come down from where we are right now. This is San Francisco. It is negative only very, very, very slightly, but that's why you don't really see it there. You could see Santa Clara County. That looks a lot like San Diego, and that's been pretty resilient. They're actually up from their peak, so San Francisco's down from their peak, but Silicon Valley is up, Santa Clara. But now Econ 101 talks about supply and demand. There's this beautiful thing in supply and demand that, as economists, it's really easy to read and you can tell exactly where we are, until you throw in that higher for longer. These high interest rates are really interfering with the way the demand and supply model works. So that's why we actually had to throw out our different categories. When it's below 60, it's hot. 60 to 90, it's slight sellers. And then equilibrium. We actually pulled those off of our reports because it didn't make any sense any longer, because now you have the supply and demand, but you throw in how high interest rates are, and it's really changed the dynamic of what happens to values. It's not just demand and supply and demand, it's supply demand rates. Until rates get down enough, it will remain supply, demand, and rates. Once rates come down enough, you can pull rates out of it, and we'll be able to gauge exactly what's going on just based upon supply and demand, because we currently still don't have that much supply, yet you can see that values aren't like screaming up higher, and some markets are already coming down. And so we had to do our own math and figure things out, and I'm going to give you the real simple way of looking at it, the way that this equation works. There's a supply scarcity, and with interest rates below 7%, there's an affordability crisis, but the supply scarcity trumps the affordability crisis. Now, today, we've actually had supply come down a little bit. I mean, supply is a little bit more than where it was before. So the supply scarcity problem, it is not as big of an issue, but it's still a giant issue. It's just, it's diminished a bit. And affordability crisis has actually grown because we have interest rates that are sticking above 7%. So we were used to this, and now we've got this. And as a result, what we're seeing is that the values are continuing to, that they're starting to go down because we've had interest rates that have been remaining above 7% for a long period of time. And until the economy starts to slow down, we see the economy slow down, or we see inflation all of a sudden miraculously come down, which is not what I think is going to happen. I actually think we're going to have to see the economy slow for us to see that mortgage rates start to come down, because that's what happens. When the overall economy slows down, we'll actually see mortgage rates come down. We're not talking about the economy coming to a complete halt and going into recession. Some people are still calling for that. Fewer and fewer economists are calling for that recession. However, as far as the overall economy, we're still seeing that there is an erosion in the economy. It's just not as swift as everybody had originally thought it was going to be, but you can actually see it in looking at a lot of different metrics. It's just, we get into the weeds if I showed you every single thing that's going on in the overall economy. So when we finally do see that the economy is slowing a bit more and that inflation is under control, at that time, that is when we will witness mortgage rates coming down. And as soon as we get mortgage rates that come down below 7%, that is when you're going to start to see that there will be more buyers that come back in the marketplace. We'll see more people that will go to the lender and qualify, put in mortgage applications, which will show you that demand down the road is going to increase. That's kind of what we saw last year. We saw in October, November, we got to that 7%, but then in November, we started to see interest rates come down, and we started to see more buyers actually go and put in mortgage applications, which meant that there was enough churn that we were going to start to see that the market would improve, which is exactly what happened. So we've got to wait. When is this going to happen? I don't know. I used to say that we should all drink beers and throw darts at a dartboard, but I've resorted to praying to God. And on Sunday, I'm devout. I go and I get down on my knees and I pray that this market will turn, because there are a lot of people. It's not just doing fewer units, which affects the number of agents and brokers and lenders and title, and everybody connected to real estate is doing fewer transactions. That's really what's going on. So it is a part of the economy that's really slow, that hasn't really shown in the overall economy, but we know what's happening in real estate. Now, and there are fewer homeowners that are able to sell their homes. There are fewer buyers that are able to participate. So it's just not a great situation for housing. So that is why I get down on my knees on Sunday and say, you know what, we need to fix for this so that buyers can buy and seller and homeowners can sell, and we can all do more units, and this part of the economy improves. So, but when that's going to happen, I really don't know, but we'll be watching the numbers like everybody else is, because the Fed's data dependent. So are we. Do I think it's going to happen? Absolutely. When? That's the big question, and we'll be watching the numbers as carefully as everybody else. If you want a copy of this, you need to be a subscriber to the Housing Report. You can go to Reports on Housing to subscribe, and Orange County, San Diego, and LA got this one. It's called A Modest Deceleration, and talks about the deceleration in the market a little bit further. And you can use the coupon code SHIFT for a free month. And then we do have a new podcast that just dropped. It was the 4th. I think I was wrong last week. I said we were on our 3rd. Actually, it was our 4th Let's Talk Housing podcast. And the most recent podcast, it can be found just about anywhere that you want to go. It's called The Great California Exodus. Yeah, you can go to Spotify, or you can even go to YouTube. It's all over the place. So please go check that out as well. So want to thank you again for tuning into another Housing Debrief. Hope you have a fantastic finish to your week. We will see you on the other side for yet another Housing Debrief. Thank you.